Please rise and join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilor William, take roll call, please.
Yes. Councilor April Dyke. Present. Councilor MacArthur. Present. Councilor Shields.
Here.
Councilor Thompson.
Here.
Mayor Rachel.
Here.
Oh, Councilor Marquez
Is absent.
is absent.
We will start off this evening with the consent agenda. We have budget versus actuals and minutes from the regular November meeting and the November work session.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a couple things I wanted to point out for correction before we do that.
Okay, go right ahead.
So in the regular meeting minutes, Beth Wojtowski was referenced as representative. She's actually the regional solutions coordinator for the state. And then Holly Halligan is with USDA, not the COG. And then in the work session minutes, Holly Halligan was referenced again with a follow-up meeting on Friday, but the follow-up meeting was actually with Arthur from Business Way.
Was with who?
Arthur
Chutchulin. Okay.
Okay, so I move to approve the consent agenda with corrections as noted by Mandy.
I'm seconded again.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Next, we'll move into citizen comments and questions. This is an opportunity to present items not on the regular agenda. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in the audience here with a comment or question? And I don't see anyone online either. We'll move into old business, of which there is none, and new business. We're going to start off with a presentation from the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office. And we have Sheriff Elliot.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity. Tonight with me is Captain Todd Whitlow. So he's the Patrol Division Commander at the Sheriff's Office, and then Deputy Sam Dyke, who is one of your 2 full-time deputies that work here in the city of Amity. So I have made it to, you're the 4th of the 5 cities that we serve with policing services contracts to do a presentation. So this is really just a recap of last fiscal year. I've committed to all 5 of the cities that I want to make sure that you are getting reports back at the end of the fiscal year. Obviously, we're a little late for this first one, but you are paying the Sheriff's Office to be your police department and to provide that dedicated service here. And so you deserve to get some feedback as to what that has looked like over the past year. So in the future, you'll see these probably more in like the September time frame, because they will conclude at the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30. It'll take us a little bit of time, and then we'll get to you as soon as we can in the beginning of the new fiscal year. Not as much for the city of Amity, but for some of the other cities, they have some budgetary considerations that they needed to make based off of some of the data from their particular cities. But I don't have some of those same concerns here in Amity that I have in a couple of the other cities that we serve. So you should all have the packet either online or paper. And so I just wanted to kind of go through and give you an opportunity to ask me any questions about anything that's in the packet. I'll just briefly explain. I'm not going to read every single data point or go through every single piece of information. But obviously we have been contracted to the city of Amity since, I believe it was December of 2018. So we have the full year of 19, 20, 2021, and so on through last year. You can see just kind of a quick snapshot of the city population and what the contract calls for as far as the number of full-time employees, and then what the calls for service have been for a couple of those year periods. And then down at the bottom, there's just kind of an annual summary of like the first 2 full years that we were here providing service, and then the most recent 2 full years. So there is a couple of years there in the middle, but it's just meant to illustrate, kind of overall what's going on in the city of Amity, what the call volume is, and how busy it is for the staff that are working here. The next slide is similar. It's just the overall activity for what goes on here within the city of Amity. You can see the total calls for service, the number of cases, and that is where an actual case number has to be taken and an incident report typed up, and then you have the number of cases ending in arrest. And so I'm not exactly sure, we started off the first back there in 2021. We were real busy that first 2 years that we were here. It tapered off a little bit, probably a lot to do with what was going on in the world during the COVID years. And then we're seeing that tick back upwards again. So last year we were almost back to 2020, 2021 numbers for the total number of arrests, calls for service, and the case numbers have climbed over the previous year. The next slide is kind of a pie chart, and it shows how the calls are handled. So that's one of the talking points that we always bring up is, we are here providing service even though you only have 2 full-time employees. Obviously 2 people can't cover 168 hours in a week. So you have 80 hours of coverage in a 168-hour week period, but we're still here handling those calls. So that's what's illustrated here. The kind of the light color is your deputies, the city deputies. They're handling 49% of the calls, and then you have the green section, which is rural deputy. And that is the deputy that's supposed to be out in the outside of the city limits, kind of in this central part of the county. So they are coming and handling calls in the city the rest of the time when the deputies that are assigned here are not working. So, we handle 100% of the calls all the time, but how that's broken up really tracks very equally with the amount of time that you have dedicated coverage. So the people that are working here, assigned here, and doing their 40-hour work week here is roughly half. You have 2 FTE, that's roughly half of the week, and they're taking roughly half of the calls. The next slide is the top 20 calls for service by type. So that's just showing, what those calls look like that are happening here in the city, what the call type is, and what the frequency is, or the number of those calls cumulative over the year. So you can see the last 2 years with 2024 being the lighter color and 2023 being the darker color. So not really any surprises there to me. And probably the biggest one that will stand out when we're looking at that is traffic stops, and we're going to cover that in just a minute. So any questions at all about any of the slides so far before I just keep powering through here? All right. The next colorful pie chart is really the same information that was on the previous slide, just illustrated a little bit differently, so you can see proportionally how those calls break up and what percentage of call volume each individual caller represents. The next page is another pie chart and shows the distribution of calls throughout the days of the week. So this is one of the considerations that we make when we're determining scheduling for the staff that are assigned to work here. It's not the only consideration. We obviously factor in requests that come specifically from you, from the council or from the mayor. We factor in requests that we get from the schools, and we try to structure the staffing of the dedicated coverage where your people are here in the city to align most efficiently with what the call volume is on those days of the week. And distributed throughout the day, so. The next slide, the all cases by UCR. This is kind of an annual snapshot of the data that you get every month. When you get the monthly activity, it shows the individual UCRs, those are the Uniform Crime Reports. So this is the information that we have to report to the FBI that shows what actual offenses are going on. There's a whole classification structure of, what a certain call type is. So, you have like larceny and robbery together. That's how they define it. We call it theft in Oregon, but we mirror up our Oregon laws with the federal UCRs, and this is what gets reported. You'll see that the vast majority are actually non-reportable. So non-reportable is a whole wide variety of call types and report types that we actually are not required to report to the FBI. And that is typically a lot of your like disturbances, non-criminal domestics, things where it's more of a society involved type nuisance than it is, like somebody is directly stealing from somebody else or assaulting somebody else. So non-reportable, it can be everything from runaway juveniles to some of your violation, like MIP, marijuana offenses, that type of thing.
So to clarify, are those literally non-reportable, so you don't send that to the FBI, or do they still want the number just?
We still have to track the non-reportable to know how many offenses. They just don't take the data, but the state of Oregon does. And so that's why they're actually going to be kind of combining federal reporting and state reporting next year. So they will probably be more broken out to where you're not lumping all these other call types into non-reportable. It'll be a little bit more delineated when you're talking about MIP and some of the status type offenses like runaway, because they're trying to align them so that they are not as like this big broad column that a bunch of stuff goes into.
And you would also think you would want to be able to compare state to state on a lot of those things, so to not observation.
We don't get a whole lot of say in what the FBI decides that they want to track. The next slide is just case status. So this is showing how the cases in the city are being closed out or how they're being resolved. So your two biggest columns there are by arrest and by an administrative closure. An administrative closure, again, kind of a broad category. That could be everything from that it was determined that a criminal offense actually did not occur to a victim decided that they did not want to pursue criminal charges against an offender. It can be things where, we take a case number on an unattended death where somebody, is not under the care of a physician and they pass away in their own home. We have to take that report, but that's an administrative closure because it's a non-criminal event. And then the last slide is traffic stop outcomes. I referenced earlier, this always tends to be a little bit of a hot topic because we get some feedback through various means. A lot of it's social media, so it's a little hard to interpret. Sometimes people think we should always write tickets. Sometimes people think we should never write tickets, that everybody should get a warning. But what's really reflected in the increase in the number of traffic stops and the traffic stop outcomes is that we have, over the past more than a year actually, probably closer to 2 years, but definitely in 2024, we have tried to take a lot of our special emphasis grant dollars that we get from Oregon Department of Transportation and utilize those in the 5 cities. So we have done special emphasis distracted driving, which is typically a lot of cell phone type tickets. We have done speed enforcement. We've done crosswalk enforcement, where we have specifically set up dates and times where we bring not just the staff that work here, but other folks that are on overtime, and we'll bring 3 or 4 people to the city and we'll do a crosswalk enforcement detail. We're required as part of that grant process to advertise those in advance. So we do social media posts, we put signs up out on Trade Street. This isn't like a big super sneaky thing. I mean, we literally have signs when you drive into town that say crosswalk enforcement staying going on today, and people will still drive by somebody that's trying to cross the street. So that's what you're seeing reflected both in the citations issued as well as in the overall number of traffic stops. Some of that can be some of the personalities. Obviously, Samardike's been here for a while, but we have had some changeover with your other deputy, and currently right now, my undersheriff is the one that's working here during the daytime, filling that position. We're struggling with some staffing issues, and so I have my professional standards lieutenant who's working in Sheridan, my undersheriff is working here in Amity. So we're committed to keeping those contracts staffed and providing that service that we've committed to and that you've contracted for, even if it means that I'm going to be down here working. So, we have made that commitment to you, and I think that it's actually been, I haven't asked him specifically, I think it's been about 10 or 12 years since Under Sheriff Gobble worked patrol on a regular basis, and I think he's having a lot of fun down here, to be honest.
Yeah, it seems like
He's done a great job coming in, and I think spending time with all of you in City Hall. He's been making friends over at the fire department, so it's been good for him to fill that void and get a little bit reacquainted with what's going on here in town, and for all the staff out on the street. So that was me talking a lot fast, going through a lot of information, but any questions that you guys have or concerns, feedback?
I want to say, as I was reading through the report, preparing for the meeting, as a point of contact for the public safety, that I appreciate greatly the not only reactive response that we're getting from our deputies, but the proactive response that we're getting from our deputies. It has been noticed, not only visibly, but our numbers show it. Our cases ending in arrests at, almost half of the cases.
Yes.
Our traffic stops, I mean, that's a lot.
Well, we have the constant here, which is Deputy Samardike. He probably knows everybody in town now on a first name basis, so it's that's part of the rationale behind filling the positions with people that are actually dedicated to be here for a period of time, is they do get to know the residents, the business owners, the city staff, and build those relationships. And I'm confident if there was something that was going to happen in town, and I showed up and started talking to somebody, and I haven't worked on the road or been down here, they're going to be like, I'm not sure. But if he walked up, they're going to tell him the whole thing. And so that's part of that community policing aspect of having the dedicated staff that are the ones that get familiar. And yes, they do rotate out or they change. Deputy Navarro moved on. I think she was a great asset to the city. Deputy Summers was here for a really long time. Probably knew everybody in town. And so it is a strategy. It's not just a, kind of a haphazard thing. It is intended to be building those relationships with the city and with the residents, not just that there's a car driving through that you aren't really sure who's in there.
Well, we are noticing, so thank you.
So I have a few things. I want to say I've seen your undersheriff at the elementary school in the mornings. Not every morning, but he makes an appearance, and every time there's parents there just talking to him. Like they pulled up and they want to chat, so I don't know if it's a concern or just to touch base, but that's the visibility that we like to see, so that's appreciated. And then a question is, in the coming year, can we expect more than a 1-year contract?
If that is something that you would like to do, absolutely, we can do more than a year. We did, I think part of at least the last year to 2 years, we had collective bargaining coming up with.
Well, yeah, I wondered if because that got settled then.
So that is all resolved, and that's a 3-year. So absolutely, we can probably in January get you pretty early on some options, looking at actual costings and doing multi-year to have that stability and planning.
Obviously, it's not a, one-person decision, but
Sure.
I know that the city would like to see those options if they are available.
Absolutely.
And then I just wanted to mention, so in the 2021 fiscal year, we got the sheriff's office budget along with this that had all the cities, and that was super helpful. So if you're looking to align it with the fiscal year, I would love that set up again.
So to align the report,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was the budget and then it showed the reports from all the cities.
Yes.
So then we can kind of compare.
and that isn't, so the last city that I have to visit, it's not for another, it's like 2 weeks from tomorrow, is Willamina. And so that report is almost done. And once I have that one, I will have all 5. And the 3 cities before you have all asked to see all the other cities as well. So those will, all 5 cities will get distributed to all 5 cities, so you can see what everybody else has going on also.
Yeah, that would be nice. And I just also liked, it gave a different perspective to see the full sheriff's office budget, right? Because we only see like, oh,
Yeah.
this is our small portion, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, I think it's pretty insightful.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything else? Okay.
I have a quick question. You mentioned staff challenges, and while I'm sure that's really complicated and challenging, wondering what your outlook or forecast was for having the appropriate staff.
Well, it is a little dependent because it's really unusual in that as of a week ago, Monday, I am fully staffed in the jail. I have no vacancy. I have 5 vacancies on the patrol side. And it is extremely competitive right now in law enforcement in general because there's a shortage of people that are willing to do the work. Not that it's the work itself, but the environment, especially in Oregon, has been a little bit unwelcoming for law enforcement. And so, there's a lot of competition because there's a lot of agencies. The city of McMinnville has more vacancy than I have in my patrol division. And so there's a small number of people that all these agencies are competing for. And we're harming ourselves in a way because somebody will throw out like, well, we'll give you this incentive, and then everybody else has to be like, oh, well, yeah, I guess we'll do that too because we want to remain competitive. And it doesn't necessarily always have to do with money per se, but it is hard when you have some agencies, especially if you go out of Oregon. I just saw an advertisement that the city of Fairbanks in Alaska is now offering a $75,000 signing bonus if you're already certified. So if you're a police officer anywhere in the country and hold a certification in any state and you're willing to move to Fairbanks, they will pay you $75,000 just to come show up. So that's kind of a glimpse of how competitive it is right now. I don't think we really have a recruitment problem or a retention problem. We've just had turnover. We've had some people have different life circumstances and they've moved on to other agencies. So we posted yesterday. We have an active recruitment going right now. I have 4 people that are in some stage of the background process already from previous recruitments. One of them is a certified lateral, so coming from another agency. The others, I have a couple internal where people are trying to go from the jail to patrol. So I don't foresee it being a really long-term issue that we're going to have staffing challenges. I don't always know what the future holds if somebody's going to decide they want to move to Fairbanks, but we're managing, And like I said, we're obviously continuing that commitment to keep those contracts full. I would hope that probably by February, I will have filled several of those vacancies. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll let
Service.
Deputy Sammerdike do the monthly report if you guys want.
Anything to add, Deputy Samuel?
Oh, good.
Any questions for our deputy? Right. We will move on to the next item of new business, the IGA for marijuana tax. So, on the November 5th election, voters in the city of Amity authorized the city to institute a local tax on marijuana for retailers of 3% of gross sales. So what we have is the agreement with the Oregon Department of Revenue that they will handle that and distribute to the city on a quarterly basis the tax revenues. Did everyone get a chance to look through the IGA? And/or are there any questions? Or Nathan, do you have anything to add?
I don't have much to add other than, if you can't tell, this is a fairly boilerplate IGA. They've done this with a lot of cities. The ordinance that we passed as a city is based off of an LOC model ordinance. This IGA is directly related to that LOC model ordinance. They worked together to develop those so that they would work well together and essentially allow everything that both agencies need. And so this is probably the easiest way for the city of Amity to administer and collect that tax. It's easiest for the city and easiest for the marijuana retailer as well. They already pay taxes to the Department of Revenue. They just add a little bit more, and then the Department of Revenue sends it our way. So.
Any questions or comments? I have one question or suggestion in that I think it would be prudent to have more than one city staff get this secrecy certification, so then that way when confidential information comes in, it's not all on one person. We'll have the city administrator be the point of contact that they have listed, but then that way, I know Tasha takes care of a lot of the financials. If he wants to share that information at all, they both have to, and there's instructions to do that.
And it's always helpful to have a backup in case we have the absence of one person. I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Revenue for the collection of marijuana taxes and authorize the city administrator to sign with the addition of, do we need to add that secrecy thing in there? Okay, then as listed, the intergovernmental agreement as listed. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Revenue for the collection of marijuana tax and authorize the city administrator to sign. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. We will move on to annual resident survey. Nathan, will you give us the rundown of what you're looking for?
I will. This is the annual survey that the city of Amity puts out to its residents every year. We usually put it out in January, just at a goal setting, so that both city council and staff have updated information from the community on any issues that they're seeing, things that they would like for the city to address, and really where they would like to see us focus. It was helpful last year to have, a few different targeted questions near the end. And so what I did was some of those are no longer relevant. And so the proposed changes for 2025 really just pull some of those out and then look at maybe other issues. I think the 3 questions that I added as a potential proposal was to, let's see, so public safety has been an ongoing concern for the residents of Amity. One tool that the city has been considering is the use of speed photo radar cameras. Would you support the use of these cameras to issue speeding citations on Trade Street? Yes, no, provide comments. Also a couple of questions about community facilities. That's been a council goal and one that has come up in discussions recently of what should our community facilities look like. And so just some questions about our community center, our library, what aspects of community facilities are most important to people, and then what kind of routes should the city be looking at for funding for some of those projects. Really from the council now, Tasha and I are looking at if there's any other questions you would like to see on there. If there's any questions that you're this isn't helpful, anything that you would like to see change, please just let us know. We're getting that ready to go out in the January building, so normally we would have the December work session, but trying to avoid needing that meeting. So if you have any comments and anything you'd like to see either addressed in the survey or removed, let me know.
So we're looking at the 2024.
So I included as exhibits both the survey that we sent out in 2024 and then also the proposed for 2025. I'm just realizing I didn't change the title on the 2025 one. I think the red block at the top still says 2024. The footer says 2025. I remember to change the footer, but not the title at the top.
So the first one is the one that's not last year, and then the second one.
Yeah.
They just both say 2024, so I'm looking at the bottom now.
Yes, I apologize for that confusion. I missed that piece. But.
Okay, I did have a question because it said, sorry,
I have a list of things.
okay, go ahead, you start.
Okay, so number 6 was the language question. I don't think it's necessary because we got that info last year, but will we have copies available in Spanish or the online version?
I don't see a 6 or a 7.
Yes. I made that in my notes. I forgot, I didn't have a chance to put it in. I figured we would just put a little note at the top. This is available in either other languages, or we could just say Spanish, and we can put it in Spanish for
I know a lot of people accessed it online, so I just think having both options would be good.
Yes, and so that was the plan, was to have both options available, to put up there at the top, in a little phrase or italics or something, for a copy in another language. Please talk to City Hall.
In the city services section, at the very end is squeezed in, please explain. I don't think that's necessary. All the please explains. It's just taking up space, and I don't think, we can have a comment line, but.
Maybe this is one big comment line for the end.
Which there is, yeah. But each little section, each answer is asking you, please explain.
Yep.
In the paragraph above question 21.
Hold on, can I clarify a little bit more on that one? So would you just put a comment section within city services or just at the end of the survey? So like, we would just want to comment, almost like a comment question, right around, like, right after number 11.
Yeah, comments about city services.
Please provide any other comments about these topics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please. And if anyone here has a different idea, just speak out loud, because I'm just, these were my first impressions.
Mine, the numbering's off, we're missing 6 and 7.
It is. I threw those
It's
for
just
both questions
changes.
and
Okay, so we're not done editing, I'm guessing. I am curious, I've wondered this every single year that I've received a survey. Do we really care what street people live on? That question has always bothered me when I get it. And I've never filled it out.
it's certainly not necessary if you're trying to go above and beyond on the analysis side. Sometimes it's helpful to know that it is everybody in the community, or to see a variety of answers there, but it's,
Yeah, so I just kind of always be like, okay, we hit all the quadrants, like make sure that there's none missing where I need.
Maybe. I just wonder if people don't want to put it down because they don't want to, like.
But it's no one's
required
forcing,
question, is it?
yeah, no one's
No, it's not
forcing.
required. I've just always wondered what the purpose was. Because I know when we go over the survey, we never discussed that question.
Yeah,
We've never discussed it the
No.
entire time I've been on council, so I just wondered if there was a purpose for it.
there are a fair number who just leave it blank.
Yeah. That's just what I wondered, so. I can stay in, that's fine, I just wondered if we had a purpose.
I think it is interesting to see, because, you know, if you have a really consistent, like, you know, everybody said that this one city service was okay, except for
And they all live
6
on the
people, and they
same-
all live on the same road.
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful for that, and if people don't feel comfortable
I think it's,
answering it, they don't have to answer it.
yeah, it doesn't take away from our information, and it might add something.
I don't think that we have it broken down when we get the survey to say, all of the residents of this street said this, or all of the residents of this street said that. When we look at the survey, it doesn't break it down that way.
when we look at the survey results, no.
That's
But
what I'm
as
saying.
we're including all the
Right, but
results.
that doesn't help with council. So if we're gonna keep the street in there and use it for that purpose, then we would need to extract that to show to the council. Because otherwise it doesn't make any sense to keep it in there. So it would be something that Tasha would have to extract in an Excel sheet or something like that to be able to give to the council, because otherwise it doesn't matter. Because we're not getting that information.
But it is still helpful in my mind to make sure that it shows how many from each spot to make sure that we're receiving the back from all parts of the city.
But if you're not getting them back, how do you do that? How do you say, oh, how do we get someone from this area to turn it in?
Just turn it
Great.
on. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Just playing devil's advocate as usual.
That's good.
I have a question about item 14, can we add Amity on there?
And that was my next one.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, good call.
That's my next. And then I had one more. On the question 10, for interactions with city staff, can we add an option for no contact? Because there's one for no opinion, but I'd like to know how many people just haven't had any contact with city staff.
There's never,
Well,
yeah,
you could even change no opinion to,
Yeah, change no opinion to no contact, or.
yeah.
because fair would be a little weird, not other way.
I mean, it would be interesting to know how many people just never interact with city staff. Because if they're not interacting with city staff, but then they're rating city staff really poorly, then.
Then again, we don't have a way to connect to that answer without.
That's true.
answers.
Yeah.
We have an
But-
eye on staff to
But if
share
we're,
observations.
but if we're getting a result that says 90% of people say city staff are poor, and then we get something that says 80% of people say they never have contact with city staff. I don't know, it's just another one of my musings,
I think that's good.
so that's all.
Councilor Thompson, did you have others?
No, it was that one. and there were a couple of just like little editing things that are, I think a lot of it is just formatting, that it's not gonna look like this, so I
I
think
was
it's
gonna say this is a rough draft, but if you have something specific, feel free to send it to me so that I know I get it.
Okay, this is a really annoying grammar thing, on number 4. Which of these was the major reason you decided to limit Amity mark all that apply? Make it a major reason, since we're giving them the option, so they don't have to just get one.
Or we could put reasons like.
Yes. Which of these were,
Mark all that apply.
Were A. Right?
yeah,
Which of these were A?
But I do like the change in the questions and the new questions.
oh, and on 13, will you add the historic landmark committee?
Cool.
I'm going to bring up question number 24. For common improvements for city facilities, a bond may be necessary. Would you support a bond measure for this purpose? I don't like the language, a bond may be necessary, because it's a choice. Like, we're never going to get to a point where I say this is, it could be our only option if we want those improvements to happen, but I just don't like the way it reads.
Like maybe a possibility.
I think it is where you move it, just put emergency facilities.
Would you support one?
Yeah. We could support a manager.
Yeah, that's a, without the first sentence, it's straight to the point question.
We're just looking for feedback, so it's not have to be super correct.
But we need to have more context in that second sentence then.
Just change it to, would you support a bond measure for
Improvements.
improvements to city
Yes.
facilities?
Yeah.
Exactly.
They would have figured, I don't know.
Yeah, it's thinking like city facilities such as community center, library,
Yeah.
and city hall. So that people know that that's not like public works or.
And one last thing, in the paragraph above, question 21, the second sentence that says the city is exploring a few different possibilities in each input. Can we change a few different possibilities to multiple options in the future?
So that multiple options.
For the future? Just because we do have some possibilities in front of us, but they're not the only ones that might have or need to think about. Any other inputs? City survey.
Say, if there's any other topics related to goals that you'd like me to ask a question about, or,
I mean, I feel like you've hit a couple big ones. Last year we did language and the lighting. This year we'll do community facilities and then public safety. I feel fine with it. If staff needs a third or fourth set of eyes before it goes out, I'll look, because I know sometimes we just read past things.
we'll send it around again, don't worry. But I just wanted to get as much discussion out of the way.
Yes. Alright. Anything else on that, or do we need any other action? We will move on to our public hearing portion of the evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we'll be holding a public hearing regarding file number 2208-01LA, legislative amendments to the Amity Development Code. I will now I will now cover some preliminary legal matters. The city planner will review applicable criteria in the following staff report. All testimony and evidence that speakers give us must concern the approval criteria described in the staff report or other criteria in the development code or comprehensive plan that the person testifying believes should apply to the decision. If your testimony will be repetitious, but you would like the opportunity to appeal the decision, you must sign and submit a public testimony sheet before the hearing is closed by noon. Only those who have appeared before the planning commission or city council in person or in writing will have standing to appeal this item. Before the conclusion of the public hearing on this application, any participant may request a continuance or ask that the record be left open to present additional information that is within the scope of the hearing. If there is a request, the city council will consider either continuing the public hearing by scheduling a date to finish the hearing, continuance. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence with sufficient details to give the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue means that no appeal may be made to the State Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Before we have the staff report, I will ask a few questions of the members of the City Council and audience. Does any member of the City Council wish to declare a potential or actual conflict of interest or bias? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the City Council to hear this matter? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the impartiality or disclosures of any of the members of the City Council? Hearing none, that concludes the legal matters. We'll proceed to the staff presentation, and we have Holly Byram joining us this evening.
Wonderful, thank you, Mayor. For the record, my name is Holly Byram, and I work for the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. I serve as the contract city planner for the city of Amity and a couple others in this region. My goal tonight is to help the city council understand the criteria that applies to this case. So this is a legislative amendment, which means that the council is holding a hearing to determine if the proposed amendments should be made to the Amity Development Code. And this is a package of amendments that has resulted from about 2 years worth of work sessions off and on between the City Council and the Planning Commission. They initially started back in the fall of 2022. There was a little bit of a slowdown with some staff turnover and some new topics were added. So what we have today are 3 main topics. Those are marijuana-related land uses, short-term rentals, and accessory dwelling units. I will note that originally this package included time, place, and manner standards for psilocybin-related land uses, but those were recently removed following the last election. So a legislative amendment is a type 4 action, and that requires 2 public hearings, one at the Planning Commission level, and then the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, and then the City Council holds a hearing. The final enactment is through an ordinance, and that will happen on a subsequent evening. So tonight, we do have a staff report in front of the City Council. And the first part of the staff report, we just touched briefly on each of these topics, kind of where the conversation has been, some of the concerns we've heard, and kind of how we ended up where the language is currently. The criteria that applies to a legislative amendment is not found in the Amity Development Code. That's more procedural about the types of notices you have to provide. The criteria itself is really the Amity Comprehensive Plan and the Oregon statewide planning goals. Generally, when your comprehensive plan is acknowledged by the Department of Land Conservation and Development, it is determined to be consistent with those 19 statewide planning goals. Certainly not all of those goals apply, but I'll just touch on a few of them that are important here. Goal 1 is about citizen involvement, and that is the way that the city allows for public to provide feedback All of the work sessions that have happened over the last 2 years have been open to the public. They've been posted on agendas, and the door has been open for participation. Newspaper notice was provided, and certainly these public hearings are open to the public, both in person, and online. Goal 2 is about land use planning procedures, how we conduct these files when they come to City Hall. The other important goals tonight, Goal 9 is about economic development. And I just wanted to touch on one important factor here, and that was the conversation that we had about short-term rentals and the value of their impact to the local economy in support of tourism promotion as a tourism accommodation. Your comprehensive plan does have references about attracting people to visit Amity and marketing strategy and economic opportunities. We did talk about how in some communities, short-term rentals can become a concern if they reduce the year-round housing supply too much. However, here in Amity, this is not yet a concern. The scale is not yet providing worry or concern to folks, so that's something to monitor. And then in terms of Goal 10, housing, we talked about how accessory dwelling units provide a housing option that's different than what you see currently in Amity. In Amity currently, accessory dwelling units are not permitted, and so this would provide another option. We talked about how people have a variety of needs throughout the course of their lifetime, ranging from, starter homes, family homes, senior housing, a number of different opportunities, student housing. And so accessory dwelling units, when developed on a parcel that is already served by utilities and infrastructure in the city as an infill opportunity, it may not be for everyone, but it might help meet the need of some folks in that housing variety. So we also talked about Goal 11, public facilities and services, about how those ADUs and short-term rentals can be located in parts of the city that are already developed, so that we're not pushing farther out into undeveloped properties. And so that's essentially touching on the main highlights there with the Oregon statewide planning goals. I'll just note that on page 10 is where the options for council motions are. And then Exhibit A is the language itself. And I know that the council members here tonight have spent a lot of time reading and discussing and thinking about these. I'm just going to touch on these briefly, and then if we need to ask questions or drill down further, we can certainly do that. So starting in Exhibit A, the first section of proposed amendments are simply the definitions. And so this includes new definitions for ADUs and dwelling units, short-term rentals, as well as the different marijuana-related land uses. And those will in particular come from the Oregon Revised Statutes. The next section is about the actual zoning districts. And so you'll note that there are new uses permitted in all three of your residential zones. That's the R1, R2, R3 zones. And those new uses are short-term rentals and accessory dwelling units. And then each of those new land uses have their own section of standards that are referenced there. Then in the general commercial zone, you see some new uses permitted, and those are marijuana retail and short-term rentals again. And again, those each have their own standards. And then in the light industrial zone, we see the marijuana processor, producer, laboratory, and wholesaler with standards. And then the next section are the three different sections of standards. And so the first one are for the marijuana-related land uses. These are the 5 land uses permitted by the state, and so those are detailed here. A lot of these standards are already required by the state, but the city is echoing those standards in their code to be consistent with the state policies. So you'll see references here that marijuana-related land uses are in a permanent building. There's no outdoor storage of the products. We don't have public access into the buildings or underage access. All these businesses are required to have good standing with the permitting state agencies, whether that's the OHA, the OLCC, or the ODA. There's a reference in there about odors and secure disposal. One thing that we spent a lot of time discussing was about the location conflicts for marijuana-related land uses. You'll note that we included the 1,000-foot buffer in here around schools as well as other marijuana retail businesses. We've provided a map in the staff report, and as we are all aware, there's currently one commercial property that is eligible for marijuana retail in city limits, and that is currently occupied by a marijuana retail business. And so at this point, that is the only commercial property eligible for retail. There are certainly other properties eligible for the industrial type land uses. Okay, the next section, 2.308 is about short-term rentals, and these are also known as vacation rentals, and those are defined as leased or occupied for fewer than 30 consecutive days. So the intent of this section was, we understand there are already short-term rentals operating in the city of Amity. We really want to make sure that they are following the rules, reporting their nights to the city, paying their taxes, and also just being good neighbors to these neighborhoods and the residents of Amity. And so the intent here is really good neighbor policies. And that requires that these short-term rentals are registered with the city, they're reporting their occupancy data, they're paying their transient room taxes. We know that those TRTs go into a pot that is used for both tourism promotion as well as a smaller portion into the city's general fund. So if the rentals are happening, the city wants to ensure that they are receiving the TRTs to benefit the community. Some of the good neighbor practices that we included in here are having a responsible party or a local point of contact available 24 hours per day to respond to any issues on a property, following the city's noise ordinances, addressing, we included the removal of litter from the property, not parking in the yards, maintaining the property. And then we also included a guest pet policy as well to clean up after pets and preventing them from unattended, prolonged parking. Again, just trying to be good neighbors here. So the section of code also includes a process for how those permits are secured, and then also a process for non-compliance. And the intent here was that if there are properties that are becoming problematic to the neighbors, that there's an opportunity for that owner to come to city council so that the problem can be addressed before there's any kind of a legal action and law enforcement becomes involved. So trying to resolve that on a local level here. And then the last section, 2.309, is accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs. These have been called mother-in-law units in the past. This is a distinct, complete living unit added to a property where there's already a primary dwelling unit. So these are often in the backyard or the side yard. There was a lot of discussion about how these can be added to existing neighborhoods. There was some initial apprehension about what that would feel like in terms of density. Ultimately, the city landed on the language that requires all of the existing setbacks of the underlying zone being followed. So it won't feel like someone's breathing down your neck. And then there's some standards in here, just one ADU per property, and that's only where there's a single-family detached home already. The ADU would be a permanent structure. It would not exceed 800 square feet in size. There's no minimum lot size required. Let's see, lot coverage is still maintained. The front facade of the ADU is not located forward of the main wall of the primary dwelling. But there is language in there stating that variances may be supported for unusual lot or corner configurations. There was some discussion about that, wanting to be reasonable in the approach here to provide local housing. Building separation, a lot of that is fire code, building code. The height of the ADU shall not be taller than the primary dwelling. The ADU shall have at least one off-street parking space, and that would be improved to city standards. And that driveway is required, and that would be paved as well. There's no minimum rental term for ADUs, and this was related to the discussion of, well, could someone have a short-term rental in an ADU? And ultimately, the discussion was that there would still be the requirement for the good neighbor policies, and you would have presumably owner occupied in the primary dwelling unit, so you'd have eyes on the ADU anyways. So I will note there are 3 sections of this code that are highlighted, and those are sections that were revised by the Planning Commission in light of new information that came in. And so here we have 2 of them. And that is that the city engineers are recommending that the ADU is separately metered from the primary dwelling. There's a number of different reasons for this, including the ability to shut one off or the other if there's an occupancy or a vacancy. But also the ability to collect SDCs, which is the next one there, system development charges. And so that is assessed when there are new meters, new connections. The intent of the city council and the discussion was that the SDCs could be at a lower rate than a primary single-family dwelling, but because that rate does not yet exist in your SDC schedule and your methodology, we didn't want to promise that in this document until that exists. So the language here was changed to as adopted in the city's SDC methodology. And so that's where that change would need to happen. And then public improvements. There was a lot of discussion about the scale of an ADU and whether or not sidewalks could be required. And ultimately it was determined that sidewalks would be required on the entrance frontage, and that minimum street paving only when it's required for access, or alley paving only when it's required for access for that ADU. And then the process would just be a building compliance application or an ECA. That's what happens with any building permits. There's no additional land use review required. So that concludes the proposed language. I'm happy to answer questions now, or we can go ahead and take public testimony, and then we can circle back to the language if we need to.
Is there any questions for staff or public testimony? It's been a lot of work. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, please.
Mayor, if I may, I apologize. There's one other item that came up in recent days, and that is in the Amity Development Code. There is a non-conforming section, and typically a non-conforming section is where you address uses that we have previously referred to as grandfathered. They were existing before new code language was enacted. We are learning every day, and it's been brought to our attention by legal counsel that actually grandfathered is, it has problematic origins, and so there are better ways to address those non-conforming land uses. And so staff's request is just that you grant us the ability to correct the Scrivener's error in this code language and replace the term grandfathered with permitted non-conforming uses.
So literally just a change in wording, I'm guessing.
Thank you.
With the conclusion of the staff report, we'll move into public testimony. If you'd like to testify this evening and you're in the audience, please raise your hand and I'll call you up. Please state your name and address for the record. If you're on Zoom, please indicate by raising your hand or putting your name in the chat, and you'll be called on. Before speaking on Zoom, make sure you state your name clearly for the record and make sure that staff has an accurate name and address. Do I have anyone in the audience that would like to testify this evening? And is there anyone on Zoom that would like to testify this evening? Give it a minute just in case. Do you see anyone? Okay. Is there any party present that would like to request to continue this public hearing? Does the staff have anything else they would like to add or clarify? And then before we start our any council discussion, do we have any questions for staff? No? Okay. Well, hearing none, last call, I will now close the and now I will open it up for discussion and deliberations from the council. Is there any questions or anything you want to add? Everyone noted the changes since the planning commission meeting.
I can review those three really quick if that's helpful.
Sure.
In the ADU section, the highlighted piece was, this was the short-term rental section. The highlighted part was on a basis required by enacting city ordinance, and that referred to how often the TRTs were reported. There was a discrepancy between what was proposed and what was actually in the ordinance. So, and then in the ADU section, the two items changed were that the ADU shall be separately metered from the primary dwelling, and that the SDCs would be as according to the city's SDC methodology, which is not one of those things that conflict.
And then, not to jump ahead, but the language change you asked about making, does that need to be included in a motion?
So, I mean, I heard, but
I don't think it should because it's going to be what we have in our packet.
right.
Oh, it is written like that in the back.
Yeah, I see. The word grandfathered is,
We would have to mention the grandfathering thing.
yeah.
Also, Mayor King, we do have one question from the Zoom audience. I don't know if you'd like me to read that aloud, or if you'd like me to ask them to come off mute, or.
So I closed the public hearing, so they're welcome to, but it won't be part of the public record.
I think that's okay.
Okay, yeah.
Clarification.
That's fine, let's do that during this discussion portion. I just wanted to make sure, for the record, I said the record of the public hearing is closed.
Lauren, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, and sorry, I was trying to type quickly, but I didn't get to it quite quick enough. But I was just wondering if there's an occupant in an accessory dwelling, if they have to follow those same good neighbor rules, or if that's only if they're staying in an accessory dwelling as a short-term rental.
I'm looking at
Sure. The good neighbor policies are included in the short-term rental section. They're not included in the ADU section. So presumably if there are covenants, codes, and restrictions in a neighborhood already that are binding on the primary dwelling, those would be binding on the ADU as well. But otherwise, there's no specific good neighbor policies in an ADU beyond the city noise ordinance and setbacks and so on. Is that helpful, or is there a specific standard that you were curious about?
Lauren, go ahead. I think you can do it.
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to acknowledge all of the work that all of you have put into this, the planning commission, and the city council. We all spent a considerable amount of time, and I know staff has really been there through this whole process as well, making sure that we got this down to the detail. And so I don't want to move through such a big thing too quickly, but I just know that we're all very aware and into what this is in front of us. So if there's something else, I will ask if there's a motion.
I move to approve the proposed amendments to the Amity Development Code presented in Exhibit A as modified by Holly. And adopt the findings in the staff report and direct staff to prepare in enacting the ordinance. Is that right?
Yes. Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the amendments to the Amity Development Code as presented in Exhibit A. Adopt the findings included in the staff report in addition to Holly's language and direct staff to prepare and enact an ordinance. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. All legislative amendments to the Amity Development Code must be enacted by ordinance, and an appeal period will follow that ordinance. In tonight's agenda, in the agenda packet, we actually had the ordinance before us. But due to procedures, we're going to hold off on that. We'll have the first reading come before us and then next. Okay, thank you all for your time and attention tonight. That is the conclusion of that.
Did you vote? We're going to close the hearing.
Yep. We will move into department reports.
Just didn't wait for the final decision.
Oh,
Sorry, I was typing it.
Okay. No, well, I don't know where.
You indicated it was final decision, you have 12 days to appeal it.
They didn't say that, yeah.
It's not.
No, because it needs to be enacted by ordinance, and then your ordinance language, I think, has a.
That will have the appeal period.
I will release
So,
that. I just need copies.
So, no, an appeal period will follow the enactment.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't know.
Sorry, it's going by like, my template. That makes sense.
Okay. City administrators reports.
I apologize, with Thanksgiving last week, I was unable to get a certain report. Yeah, no, I missed it. We went over a lot of things in the city council work session. The only thing that I would add or kind of update on that, to the work session, I talked about the opportunity with the Travel Oregon Recreation Ready Grant. I put, feelers out in the community, asked if people would be interested in serving on that project steering committee. And I have gotten five responses on that project steering committee.
Wow.
Including Councilor Thompson and then 4 other community members who are interested. And so I'm going to submit that grant application today or tomorrow, but I'll have that submitted and hopefully we get good news from that. So I contacted the Regional Destination Management Office. It's the Willamette Valley Visitor Association out of Salem, and they were very supportive, wrote a great letter of support, and so I think there's a lot of interest in seeing rural communities kind of take up projects like that, and it's like high hopes for our recreation-ready grant, so.
Questions for Nathan?
I may have missed it, but what's the status of the park path?
So the park path, that one will be starting, yeah, like next week, I think.
Okay.
The trees will also be getting trimmed next week.
And are we putting out a notice about that?
Yes, thank you for the reminder.
Thank you.
I meant to, and it should have been by now, so I will get that out tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
There was something in the newsletter about it.
Yeah, I'd just like it to go out as a,
I meant for more to go, both on the city website and on Facebook, but it slipped through, so thank you for the reminder.
And then I was gonna ask if you could give council a Goucher Street update, because we talked about not cold patching the trench and then things have changed, yeah.
yes.
It did, things did change a little bit. We received a number of complaints from residents that, it just wasn't holding up. We also weren't sure exactly how long until the paving was going to take place. And it ended up being one of those where it didn't seem too costly to just have them patch it. And so we went ahead and said, yes, please patch it. And they, with the weather, got some hot mix asphalt from the plant and were able to do that this week, so.
And I have to say, I appreciate the state of Barney Alley.
The contractor's been really good to work with. They offered to take any gravel that they took out of the trench for the asphalt patching, they just put on Barney Alley or Church Avenue. They kind of spread it around.
It's amazing.
So they had noticed the issues enough that they were complaining about them too, and so they helped us out. We were very appreciative.
Well, and a couple of things I considered after our discussion here at council is our initial bid included them leaving the road as good as they found it. So even though our paving plan had changed, the initial bid had that. Also, if we were to call them back 4 to 6 times throughout the next few months to fix the trench, it probably would have cost just as much as the patching made it. If nothing else from Nathan, we'll move on to our city reporter report. We have that here. Natasha, do you have anything to add?
You guys all have well, I'll let you do the other one, but yes, that one. The invite for the staff council party, the 18th, we're just gonna do the gift cards again for the preschool fundraiser, the local gift cards. So I think, what was ours for the 10th? It's coming up already. Was it the 10th or 12th?
It doesn't say.
11. Okay, yeah. It's like I can try to have RSVP, and then if you're wanting to participate in the gift card exchange, I can have also at least a heads up that you are, because they need their members. I think that's treated well. We'll touch base on the tree lighting. The tree of giving is up and running at First Federal. There was about 60 kids on the tree. So. Spread them out on that.
Any questions for Josh? Okay, we have a public works report. Any questions or anything for staff to add? Library report, city engineering billing report, city attorney planning billing report. I call. Do you have questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Hearing nothing, we'll move on to business from the mayor and city councilors. Council President Beck, do you have comments for the good of the order?
I do not, other than I want to thank everybody for my time here. This will be my last meeting.
Councilman President, do you have any comments for the good of the order?
Ditto, this is my last meeting.
terms.
Counselor Shields, do you have anything?
I will be here, but nothing on.
Counselor Thompson?
I'm thinking about moving to Fairbanks. No,
And you know what, I do have something to add. We have an Amity Day committee meeting coming up, if anybody wants to participate. I will remain on that,
Let's go.
and that's on the 10th, I believe, at 5:30 or 6?
Next Tuesday at 5:30.
5:30.
Is what I sent out anyway.
Yep.
Hopefully that works for everyone.
I was gonna say, that's what's on my brain, so I hope so.
That's, okay, mayor's report and final comments. Just a few things. We have the tree lighting coming up on Friday here. The parade is gonna do its thing, leaving about 5:45, and so it makes its way around here. We lighting the tree. I'll be here early. We're gonna have some refreshments. Lots of people gather, so all of you are welcome to join me there, and then we'll have festivities at the fire department afterwards. Nathan and I will be visiting with Representative Palmer next week.
Week after.
Week after next, yes. Don't want to get ahead of myself. Just coming into the next long session, we're just gonna touch base on what's going on with Amity. And then if you all have your emails, you should have gotten an invitation from Congresswoman Salinas today or tomorrow. She's having a get together in Salem, so I'll be there as well if anyone wants to carpool or communicate. Quick plug for City Day at the Capitol happening January 28th, like staff now, if that's something that you want to do. I need to apologize to you all and tell on myself. We talked about me signing that letter for the National League of Cities to sign up, and I spaced it, so that didn't happen. So they do not have city unanimous support in writing. My apologies. And then I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge our outgoing counselors. Councilman MacArthur has been here since 2018. She is the point of contact for infrastructure and services. She's been an advocate for leash laws and dogs in the park, and she's been through a lot and stuck with this. So thank you for your service here. And then Council President Dyke has held the Council President's position multiple times. She's been here just as long as I have, full term. Our point of contact for public safety stuff and all the financials and just holding that responsibility. Thank you. You both will be missed, but you're always welcome. We have lots of open seating, so I would love to see you back frequently as you would like here on campus. And that's all I have, guys.
Can we talk about that?
Oh, and yeah, forgot. Thank you for Christmas done right. Amity done right. Amity Christmas done right. I thought we changed the name. It's Amity does it.
Yes.
Yes.
That's just the judging part.
Okay.
That's not gonna
So that is happening. We put out in the newsletter that judging would be happening on the 20th. Is anyone interested and available for judging either together or on our own? If we take a quick head count, we can plan.
I am working until 6 today.
Okay, on the 20th. Okay. So let's do it this way. Let's meet at 6:30 here on the 20th. Nathan, can you post something that we might have a forum, but no, city business we can discuss, just to put that out there. And then you can RSVP to me and Natasha or and them just to be in that in case we have to figure it out or something. I might have to change the time because of wrestling. So we're just gonna do our best to show up that evening and get it
And
done.
if we need to go earlier, you know, like, I don't know,
Okay.
as
Okay.
long as I have that time.
Okay.
I just need to close the case early, like, do that, it is.
Councilmember Bartlett, do you think that's something that you would?
Maybe.
Okay. And we'll have to touch base with Councilmember Barnes because she will be back, so she wants to do that. But yeah, we're just the same right as last year. With that though, are we confirming that we do not have a work session on the 18th? Can we confirm at this point that it will not?
City staff wasn't planning on it.
So, okay, and the
Unless
newsletter
you
said
want
to be determined.
Yeah.
I've made other plans.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I think 50% of people.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So we'll stay in touch. I will at least stay in touch with Council Thompson and Nathan about my status for this evening. Other than that, is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, I'll ask for a final motion, please.
What all said?
Oh, okay, then I move to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?